Hello, everyone from Chelsea Fan TV. I hope you're all doing very, very well. It is match day. We are up against Brighton in the FA Cup. We'll be playing at 8 o'clock. I mean, it's the worst time ever. I don't know why. Why has it got to be an 8 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday? I mean, it could be worse. It could be 8 o'clock on a Friday, like next week. But it is what it is. Obviously, because it's a bit later, we're able to do a little stream before. And then I'm pretty much heading straight over to Brighton. I'm guessing you're probably watching the game as well, Scott. It's
Yeah,
on ITV. Is that right?
I had to check that when I got home because I forgot it was a late kickoff today. So yeah, ITV4, I want to say, if you're in the UK.
And so you can't. Do you have to actually go on your you can't watch it on TV, can you? Or do you have to watch it on a laptop?
No, you can watch it on TV. Yeah, you can watch it on TV as long as you've got that channel, which I think most people do.
It's a bit weird though, because I thought that the FA Cup had been bought out by TNT. So when I heard that it was on ITV in the first place, I was like, doesn't that take away from what I thought? Because I thought it was meant to be, well, it was you had to pay to watch the FA Cup. That's the way they made it seem.
Potentially, I forgot it even been bought out by TNT. Really called a BT.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's just you get confused with all these things, keep changing. But yeah, I didn't forgot it had been bought out by TNT, but I don't know, they keep changing it all the time.
Yeah, well, it was a controversial decision, but anyway, we're going to get into it. Big up to you, Scott. Thanks for jumping on, and big up to everyone that's watching as well. If you haven't already, smash the like button. Let's get straight up to 20 likes on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. If you haven't, we will be answering any questions that are in the chat, as well as doing a predicted lineup. I did my predicted lineup yesterday, Scott, so I'll let you do yours, and then we sort of delve into any of the other talking points regarding both teams, as well as, well, to be honest, anything that you want to talk about. How are you feeling going into this one, Scott?
It's a good question. I don't really know because both teams are a bit up and down. I think we obviously had a good result against West Ham, which we needed desperately. And this Brighton team are quite out of sorts. I mean, they lost, what was it, 5-0 to Forest.
7,
then proceeded. Oh, it was 7. Oh no, it was Forest that lost 5. Yeah, they lost 7-0 to Forest. Then they lose again or drew. But yeah, so they're a bit out of sorts as well. So it should be a game that we have more confidence in, but we've seen this before where we don't always capitalize. With certain players being out, which I assume we'll talk about, it's going to be interesting. I'm interested to see how much rotation Maresca does. Whether certain people come in. I mean, we've seen the pictures, I assume, in training of certain guys training. Whether they get minutes or not is remains to be seen. But it's going to be interesting. I think it's a game we should win, but who knows with how we're playing at the moment.
Are you feeling confident?
Yes and no. Again, yes, because we are the form team technically, but no, because of just how we've played recently. This isn't the Chelsea that was at the start of the season, the first, few months up to about December, January time. This has been not, I won't say a complete switch, but it's been very different. And so I'm slightly confident, but probably not as confident as I should be, considering.
I feel the same way. I feel like Brighton is a team that you look at and you think, oh, that's actually going to be quite a tough game. But at the same time, you look at where they are in the season, and it seems like a good plan to play them. They've got a few key players out. I think Estupinan's in doubt. Baleba as well has been one of their best players. I remember people told me about him when we had the home fixture. So if those players don't start, I mean, that's certainly something. And those, I don't think they were available against Nottingham Forest either. So I don't know if they're that integral, if it was just a great performance from Forest. I didn't watch the game, to be honest, but if it's anything like that, then we'll be in for a great day. I think our track record against Brighton's been pretty good as well. Obviously, we can't say too much about, I think that his name's Fabian Hertzler, their manager. We've only played them once since he's been in charge, but we've had a pretty good record. I think that the past 4 in a row, we've got one up on them. So For me, I think we go into this. Well, we clearly go in as the favourites, but I do think there has to be an expectation to win this game relatively comfortably. But again, that comes back down to Maresca and the way he chooses to set up. You can either go down the route of that Conference League rotation, which would be very strange considering the amount of players that we've basically given away in January, and we talk about defending the moves that we've done because they've paid for the transfers that have come in, even though one of them isn't even Chelsea, it's Strasbourg with Sarr. So we're very limited, aren't we? We're very limited with what we can do.
No, I agree, and I'll touch on the transfer window in a moment because I haven't managed to say my thoughts on that on this channel so far. But yeah, I agree. I hope we don't do the full rotation because I'm just trying to see here. Yeah, I hope we don't do the full rotation because the last time we did that in a game like this, it was Newcastle, and this was a Newcastle team that was coming off the back of losing to us, Brighton, drawing to Everton, losing to Fulham, and we played our whole B team and they beat us. They smoked us. It wasn't even close. Now, as you mentioned, some of those guys are no longer here permanently or otherwise for some reason. But yeah, I hope we don't do the full rotation. Certain players here and there, I'd like to see Josh get minutes. I'd like to see. Actually, I don't really care if he gets minutes, but that new guy we signed, if he gets minutes in midfield, maybe you give Caicedo a rest.
Amagu or whatever his name is.
Amugu, whatever.
Amugu, yeah.
I know Samuel Smith has been training with the first team, so maybe he gets a few minutes. And then the other one, there was one more I was thinking of as well. I can't remember, but yeah, hopefully some of these guys get minutes in this game because I think, especially the likes of Josh, he's shown he can handle a Premier League team before. It'd be good for him to get more minutes, especially now that James is just coming back, so he might get some. But seeing Disasi's now left, I think he's got the perfect opportunity. But it's going to be interesting to see who we rotate.
100%. I mean, if you look at Brighton and Fabian Herzler, what they're saying, he's basically said we're going in to this competition looking to win a title. That's what he's come out and said. So, I mean, take it with a pinch of salt. You don't think that Brighton are actually going to win it. But it does tell you that they're going to take it seriously, just like Newcastle did. And the last time we were in a position where a team took it seriously and we didn't, we got absolutely smoked. And I think the same thing will happen if we go out with a lineup that's not too weak. I think the midfield is massively important. Even just missing one of Caicedo or Fernandes, Caicedo is the obvious one, will be a huge disadvantage from the get-go. You then look at what are you going to do at left-back if Cucurella doesn't play. I don't think the centre-backs will change too much. Which goalkeeper is going to be starting? Because now that Jorgensen's been put in the Prem, does that mean that Sanchez is now going to be the goalkeeper? Is there a realistic option that could actually happen?
I thought about this, and I was having a conversation with Lewis about this actually, and others on his channel, and I said, like, if it comes down to it, because you're right, technically speaking, if Jorgensen is now the number one, we don't know. He's only played the one game against West Ham, not counting the Ipswich game. That was like full rotation for that game, basically. Played that game against West Ham, seemingly out of nowhere. If he is now the de facto number one for the league, that means by default Sanchez is the backup, so he is now the cup keeper. And I'll be honest, I'd prefer him to play in the cup.
What?
Like if he has to play,
if he has to play at all, Scott.
Oh no! Let me rephrase that. I don't want him to play at all. He should never play for Chelsea again. I'm saying he probably will play one of these games God. If he's the backup. I would rather him play in the cup because for me this season, this might be sacrilege to say, top four is way more important than winning anything. Like winning a cup outside the Conference League, which we should win. To me, top four is more important this season for us than winning the FA Cup. So if he has to play in one game, he shouldn't. But if he has to, I'd rather play him today.
Also, deep down, we know that we've got to win the Conference League. It's not even, we might win the conference. It's like, no.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. I don't care. Like, the fact that we've got Nkunku as basically probably our only striker for now to the end of the season, that's another piece of news, by the way, in the Conference League, doesn't matter to me. He should end the Conference League top goal scorer, and we should win that comfortably. It doesn't matter that we've got guys out or whatever, or we're playing youngsters in the team.
I don't even know if Jackson's. I know he's had a nickel, but I think he's available now.
He's not. He wasn't called up originally, and he's not one of the 3 that's been recalled in the Conference League.
He's not been called up for the Conference League squad.
He wasn't. So as well, he never played in the Conference League. So
yeah. But I thought he was in contention for the Brighton game, even if it was just even if it was a risk.
Oh no, sorry, I meant for the Conference League. So as far as I'm aware, I don't think he was called up to the Conference League squad when we played the group stage games. And when you get to the next round, you can only make 3 changes, and he wasn't one of the 3 we included.
Yes, you're right, because it was Palmer, Chalobah, and Amugu that were added to the squad.
So it's either Hugh, who's injured for how long we don't know, or Nkunku is our number 1 in the Conference League. But that's a bridge to cross when we get there.
Fair enough. Let's see what the chat's saying. Big up to everyone that's in it. I don't even know how many likes are on. We've got more people in here now. So let's see if we can get up to 30 likes. If you haven't already smashed the like button, please do. It helps a lot. Gurav, big up to you. I hope you're doing well, mate. We will have to work hard. Brighton are not Ike?
He meant to put easy in his next comment.
Yeah, they're not easy at all. Oh, there you go. You corrected it. Yes, I will be at the Amex. Are you going to this one, Scott?
I'm not. No, I will be watching it at home. Unfortunately,
fair, you've probably got the right idea. If I'm honest, you can't get home after the game unless you drive. So I'm actually staying in Brighton, which never happens. So I've got a hotel, 79 quid, could be worse. It's a 5-minute drive from the Amex. So I was like, I can either get a hotel which is cheaper by about 10-15 pounds, but it will be like 30 minutes away, or I can just get a cab and have a cheaper hotel anyway. I thought that would be easier. So that's what I'm doing. Bro, if Jackson doesn't play, who's at striker? I heard Jackson is at risk. I think he's got to be Nkunku then, really, doesn't it?
So, quite literally the only option. There is no one else. So Jackson's a risk. Hugh is injured. Fofana is injured for the rest of the season. That's why we recalled him. Felix is no longer here. And Shimwaka, the youth team striker, is also injured. Oh, and Washington's no longer here.
Where's Washington gone? He's gone to...
back to the club we bought him from.
He's gone where?
Santos, the club we bought him from 2 years ago.
They sold... How much did we get
for him? They loaned him.
Oh, so he's still our player?
He's still our player, but he's gone. Not for this season.
There you go. Fair enough.
Only guy that I think is available outside of like the obvious is Ronnie Stutter, and that's because we recalled him from his loan at Burton. But if he plays, I will eat my hat.
I've never even heard of him. Fair
Don't
enough.
blame me.
We have to put our strongest team out. I'm with you there, Neil. We've got to take this competition seriously. But Scott, I mean, you do think that... So if we had to rest players in order to prioritize the game next week, is that what you would do?
Yes and no. Like I would, but the problem is in some positions you just can't. Like we know the striker position is as it is. I hope Nkunku starts, not because I think he's a good player in the 9, but because we can't risk Jackson right now, which is so stupid to say. But that's another issue. The midfield is another.
You're not a fan of Jackson then?
No, I love Jackson. I hate the fact that we have gone through another window with no number 9 coming again. And our backup number 9
that was very strange.
Our backup number 9 gets his first proper minutes in the league for months, maybe ever, and gets injured straight away. Fantastic.
We've left ourselves open. I mean, the thing is, if we get Champions League with this strategy, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to give credit to the board and the ownership, but you kind of have to in a way, because there's been a clear progression from finishing 12th to 6th to then 4th or Champions League, whatever that is. You can't say that we've gone backwards. I mean, initially we went backwards by a long shot, but then we've kept ourselves going back on track. I think after that, I mean, providing we get Champions League football, we then have to be in a position where we're competing for the title. Otherwise, we are going to be in a situation where we just know as a club we are not what we once were. And to be fair, let's not kid ourselves, we're still not. But to be in a position, even if we're a well-run club like Liverpool, for example, and we're challenging and winning trophies, I think that's best case scenario with the current ownership that we have. We're not going to see we're not going to see the Man City style transfer windows, because they're spending this money, but they don't care if they make it back. They don't care. They're not looking to increase the value of the club to then sell it on. They're not looking to put players on these long contracts. Like Haaland wasn't given a 9-year deal because they're planning on selling him for a profit. That's not the reason they're doing it. It's because they want to win, and they're going to secure him like that. Whereas we put players on these 7-8 year contracts, and some of them never even play for us. But hey, we make 5 million on a flip. Life's good, and it's a strategy that we're not going to stop doing, even with Champions League football, based on what I've read. But we just need. I mean, even if we did that, Scott, half of the problem that I think we have is there's actually decent players, and we just don't go anywhere near them. And even the players that are performing, we let them perform with the view that even if they're one of our best players, they will still be sold. Chalobah's a great example. I think we might see something similar with Petrovic, which is really unfortunate. I hope that's not the case. And maybe a couple of others as well.
I have so many issues with the way that the transfer strategy and the way we're being run in terms of transfers and the model and things like that are going on. The model itself, on the face of it, isn't a bad idea because a lot of teams are going that way. The issue that we have gone with is we have gone too far with it. The entire team is youth, basically, which never works in football. But then you look at who are actually signing, and it would be fine if we were signing the best of the best. Like we were signing your Viniciuses, your Rodrigos, Mbappe's, who else? Miles, Kubasi, whoever. We're not. Outside of Caicedo, Enzo, and Palmer we got extremely lucky on. Let's be completely honest. No one expected him to be as good as he is. We're not signing the young players of that quality.
It's true, man. It's true. But we do have good players. I mean, Jorgensen, he did play at St Mary's too, but I think that was, again, just he's like pity rotation at the time because we knew we would easily beat Southampton. So there's an excuse to give him minutes. Big up to you, Oscarito. Hope you're doing well. Neil, absolutely. Champions League is the main goal. I think anyone would agree with that. Oscarito, it's your first time here from Nigeria. Big up to you and big up to Nigeria as well. I've never been to Nigeria, but I have been to Africa. I know you've got a big Chelsea following out there. So, yeah, I hope you guys are doing well out there. I'm trying to see if there's any new information that's come out as well. Obviously, it makes it so difficult when we look at the rotation based on the players we got rid of. But why don't we just get straight into it, Scott? You know, who are we looking at? We've got a lineup builder over here. I found it. It's quite a good one actually as well. So I want to know who you think we should have, and presumably this is the formation we're looking at. It's a 4-2-3-1. That's generally what we have. People say in the comments sometimes. I read the comments and they say, 3-5, blah blah, because of the inverted fullbacks. They're still fullbacks. Don't complicate it. Keep it simple. So yeah, we're going to stick with this formation. It's up to you, Scott. This is your lineup. So I'll give my thoughts, but it's all on you today. Before that, big up to you, Steve. I hope you're well and Godspeed. Kickoff time is 8 p.m. UK time. So who are you going to have in goal, Scott?
Jorgensen. Like I said, Sanchez.
And is this what you want, or
yes? This is what I want. No, this is what I want. Not what I think will happen. This is what I want.
We'll go with what you want first, and then we'll change it depending on what happens. Oh, what's going on here? Why is it coming up with Frankie de Jong? I thought I made Chelsea. Here we go. Clear lineup. Oh, you literally have to type in the player like that.
Yeah, because otherwise it just comes up. There you go.
All right. Jorgensen in goal. So there's no question marks over that. Why do you want Jorgensen? I know it seems fairly obvious.
Because Sanchez is the worst goalkeeper in the league, bar none. The only other keeper that was on par with him got dropped by his club, and they are now better for it, slightly. He's terrible. I thought he was terrible from the moment we bought him before he even joined our club. the fact that I'm seeing videos and clips of his time at Forest Green Rovers 5 years ago, and he's the same player. He is awful. He is, in terms of, forget the money, in terms of actual signings and what they've done on the pitch, he's one of the worst signings we've ever made at this football club.
One of the worst.
Yes.
I mean, his market value apparently is still about 20 million, which surprises me. I think that's really generous.
Yeah, if that's the case, it's him and Ben Roberts need to leave, like, quickly, soon.
Yeah. I think it's a fairly simple decision on that one. I don't think we need to. Does anyone in the comments disagree with starting Jorgensen for this game? Please let me know. Smash the like button as well. We're going to go right back, Scott. Who do you want as a right back?
Who do I want? It's one or two. I think do you know what? I want to see Josh start. I want to see him get some minutes.
I want to see Josh.
Doesn't have to finish the game. That's absolutely fine. But I'd like to see him get some minutes from the start.
I mean, his last game was against Crystal Palace, right?
Yes. No, it was against Bournemouth because he came off after the Semenyo goal.
Ah, that's fair. I thought when he made his initial debut against Palace, he was fantastic. He was voted man of the match in that game. Do you know what I love about him? He is naturally a centre back, if I'm not wrong. But
he's naturally a right back. Or he came through. He came through the academy as a right back, but could also play centre back.
So initially, when he made his debut, he was a centre back then, because Gusto was on the right hand side against Palace. He was fantastic in that game. Is it worth saying maybe you need to move in as a centre back, or do we not have enough options out wide to warrant that?
I don't think it's not necessarily the options out wide. It's more the options in the centre, and I think, as you'll see in a moment, there's certain guys starting that I just think for this game, even though I want rotation, I still want us to be strong enough to be able to win this game comfortably. And you'll see with who I pick as centre backs in a moment, I think there are other options we need to go for there. And I think right back, with how we're playing, is that position where we can, like, James doesn't need to start necessarily. Like, if he does, I'll understand.
James can start. I think he's got another injury, hasn't he? There's something else came out. It was a little niggle that he had, so I don't think he's in contention for this match anymore. I saw something about that today. I'll double check what the injury is, but yeah, he's not going to be featuring in this one.
No, and I don't know if I would have started him anyway. Maybe giving him minutes off the bench potentially. There's also Gusto to start, but yeah, for me, I just want to see Josh get more minutes in the team, just because I think his ceiling is very high. I think he has shown a level of quality coming in. He's shown a level of comfortability that we haven't seen from other players necessarily. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're going with Achimpong on the right, Jorgensen in goal. We'll go left back. Who do you want on the left?
I'm going to say Cucurella. There's literally no one else. I'm not playing Gusto there. I'm not playing James there. Samuel Smith, I think, should get potential minutes off the bench depending on the game state. We have no one else. We sold our backup. We're not sold. We loaned our backup left back out and didn't get a replacement.
I'm very much with you on that. I think you almost have to play Cucurella if you're taking this game seriously. But if we're just talking about resting players, then I think he will play Gusto, but we can talk about that later. He brings something dynamic, Cucurella, doesn't he? And I think that in this game, I would be surprised if Cucurella doesn't invert, especially if you've got Caicedo out or any of our normal midfielders out. They need all the help they can get in the middle. And then just a little bit more defensive cover on that left-hand side with a winger tracking back. But yeah, that's the way I see it. I don't think that we're going to have an overlapping option. I mean, I wouldn't be against it, to be honest with you, because I generally quite like overlapping fullbacks. I'm not a big fan of inverting fullbacks, but I can appreciate that that's what Maresca wants. And listen, Cucurella is bloody good at it, so I haven't really got a big issue with it when he does it. But when you've got other players doing it who aren't capable, then it just seems really pointless to me. But again, you've got to learn the system, and maybe it will take a year. Maybe for some players it will take longer. So we've got Cucurella on that left-hand side. Who's your centre-back pairing? Let's start with the left side.
my centre-back pairing for this game and for the rest of the season would be Chalobah on the left and Tosin on the right.
Chalobah on the left. Okay. So why are we going with Chalobah and Tosin?
Few reasons. Number one, the one time they've played together, I understand it's a very, very small sample size. The one time they played together against Wolves, they were very good. Don't really think they made any mistakes in that game. I think we don't have anyone else. There's not kind of a small number two. But I think the bigger reason why I'd start both of them, I think Tosin has been pretty good. I won't say he's been amazing, but I think he's been fairly solid in recent games. Chalobah, I think, as well, since he's come back outside of the one mistake he made against City, has been fairly solid. I need to see Levi Colwill benched. I'm getting extremely sick of watching him play and the way he acts on the football pitch. The game we just had against West Ham was the final nail in the coffin, because this is a guy I've tried to defend a lot, because I do believe there is a potential player in there, but the mistakes, the lack of commitment sometimes in terms of going into challenges or getting beaten too easily, the just petulance like off the ball, and when he gets beaten it's always someone else's fault, and arguing all the time with the ref and picking up stupid yellows. Like, that happens when you're a kid, and I understand that, but that can't be happening on a regular occurrence.
So is it more his skill or his ability as a player that frustrates you, or is it his mentality?
Mentality. I think he's had, because he's played well this season. Like, he played well to start the season, I thought, up until, I can't remember when it was, but it was up until a point he was, I thought, our best centre-back. I thought he was playing really well. Even when I thought at times Fofana didn't start the season great, he was still performing. But I can't remember what game it was, but there's just been a switch, and yeah, it's mentality more than anything, because getting beaten once or twice I can accept. Like, we've seen Chalobah, it happened to Chalobah, Tosin, Fofana, it happened to all of them. That I can accept, especially for a young centre-back. That's going to happen. What I can't accept is he makes a mistake against West Ham, making a pass that he has no right to make on his weak foot, that was never open because he's not paying attention. And then his immediate reaction is to turn around and start moaning at the ref. Like, that's unacceptable to me. It's the same thing I'm seeing from Jackson, and I don't like from Jackson either. And it's the thing I'm seeing from a few players in this team that I don't like. And it's just, from someone has been touted as a potential future Chelsea captain, that's not leadership. That's not captain material. That's just losing your head.
I mean, Neil makes an interesting comment. He says Levi's form has fell off, but we've got to show him some loyalty.
We've been loyal. He's the only centre back that's basically played every game this season, I think, outside of maybe one, in terms of the league.
So when we talk about how we can improve the defence, obviously Chalobah and Tosin certainly seems like a solution, especially in the short term. There's always good, and I think Guardiola's a good, well, maybe not the best example this season, but in past seasons he's had players that in previous years have performed well for him, and then for whatever reason they get dropped for quite a period, and then they come back, and whatever it is, they'd had all this time to work on themselves and reflect, and then come in and perform at the highest level again. That's what you're essentially saying, a long period out as opposed to just a game or two. You basically want to see Chalobah and Tosin week in, week out until the end of the season.
Yes. As I think, but for me, I've said since for a little while now, for me, Chalobah is our best centre-back. I think on ability, or based on everything, I think he's our best centre-back. People want to forget what happened under Tuchel in terms of the start, and just remember what was happening at times under Potter and Pochettino at times, and under the end of Tuchel and this, that, and the other. For me, he's our best centre-back. And I think then Tosin has been our most consistent centre-back of recent time. Obviously, if Fofana was fit, this might be a different conversation. But with Tosin, how he's played, like, I've never been Tosin's biggest fan, and I've not been massively happy with the signing, but I'm not going to sit here and say he hasn't played well. Like, he has been solid.
He's been a good signing, Scott. I don't understand how anyone could say he's not been a good... Is he a waste of money or not?
I mean, a waste of money. You can't say he's a waste of money because we didn't
cost anything.
No, exactly. It didn't cost anything. apart from the
There you
wages.
go.
It's more just the quality. I don't think he was good enough quality to play for Chelsea on a consistent basis. Him starting and playing now is good, but long term is a different thing. But if he's playing now and playing well, I can't say anything else. I can't say, oh, he shouldn't be playing, because that'd be stupid. If he's playing well and being consistent, then let him play. And then, yeah, as I said, the only other centre back we've really got that's fit is Chalobah, and I think he's better than Colwill in general, but also right now. So yeah, and I just need Colwill to be dropped for a couple games, just to. Same thing with Jackson. Just take him out of the spotlight, take him out of the team for a moment, let him reset mentally or whatever, and then bring him back in when he's had a chance to get himself back together.
I'm with you. Christian says tossing over Colwell at the moment. That's fair enough. Stephen says, are we risking Cooker to injuries if he plays today? He's pivotal to us. I think
there's nowhere else.
We definitely are, but is the FA Cup a competition that we want to take seriously or not? And unfortunately, you can't blame the manager if he doesn't have the players to be able to grind out results week in, week out. If he's only got one starting 11 that's capable of actually beating Brighton on a consistent basis, and nine times out of 10, Chelsea should beat Brighton. We know that. That's going to be more likely to happen with Cucurella than without Cucurella. If you're putting Gusto on that left-hand side, or God forbid, we maybe saw Colwell like we did last season to try and bail us out. So you're almost forced to play Cucurella, and even still, you see heavy rotation, but it's the best lineup that we can offer, barring maybe you could argue Gusto instead of Achimpong. Some people were happy with Gusto's performance off the bench. And yeah, so we go from there. What lineup builder is that? It's FootMob. FOTMOB. FootMob is the lineup builder. Scott, how long have you got, mate?
5-10 minutes.
Cool. No worries. I'll take over after you. We'll get your lineup sorted. Midfield. We move on to the midfield. Who's next?
It's gonna be Enzo and Caicedo. They get so many of the problems with this team. It's the same as Cucurella. There's no one else. I know I talked about him earlier, that young kid. I don't want him playing. This is a guy who, if you look at how many minutes he's played this season, this is his first season of professional football. Actual proper, he played one game last season. Yeah. He's played the equivalent of 9 games in terms of minutes in his career.
How many minutes?
He's played about 850 minutes. It's the equivalent of 9.5 games.
Jesus Christ.
In his career.
If you look at Enzo Maresca's quote on Matisse Maggi as well, look what he said. He said, we didn't sign him thinking he's going to play an important part for us immediately. The reason why is the age. We think he's a good player and we need the process. What does that mean? How is that supposed to reassure fans for this season? Give us any confidence.
I don't know. I have no. I don't know. I didn't want him. When we were looking at him, I was like, this can't be real. It was real. I've got no words. You had someone out on loan who was better than him, who was definitively better than him, and you decided not to bring him back and just let him play for a team that's going to finish bottom of the Premier League this season. For some reason.
So what's your take on Fernandes and Caicedo then? I mean, Dewsbury Hall could be an option. So
he was the only one I was thinking. The issue with Dewsbury Hall is, for me, he'd have to play instead of Fernandes, but Caicedo's the one I want to take out because he's the one I'm more worried of the two, which is weird to say because Enzo's just come back from an injury last season, but I think we saw Caicedo go down with something of in one of the games. Was it not? It was either West Ham or City. I think he went down, was fine to continue. He's the one I'm more worried about. If we lose Enzo, as bad as it is, I feel like you could make some adjustments. You could mitigate for it. It's going to be bad. If you lose Caicedo, that's it. That's finished. That's done. Him and Cucurella are the two most important players to our team. In fact, Palmer is now in that conversation because we have no backup for him. But those two are the most important players to our team. And they're also, ironically enough, the two players we have no cover for.
Yeah, so I have to agree with you. Although I would change one of those players for Dewsbury Hall. I think
that's fair.
I think if I had to make a change, I'd probably take Caicedo out and I'd put Dewsbury Hall and I'd keep Fernandez in there. You've got fluidity on the ball. Cucurella is inverting. You've got some defensive cover in the midfield. We can still win that battle. Brighton have got players out as well, like Maleba, for example. I think that we can still win that battle. And to be fair, Dewsbury Hall against Wolves when he played last, I thought he did himself, I thought he did a good job. What frustrates me with him is he doesn't, he's not particularly creative. He's not great at shooting. I mean, he can have a shot. And he can't dribble. He just literally physically can't dribble. He's like Griezmann, very one-dimensional in his approach. But if he just picks the basic passes and, he can get it ticking, but you won't get much more from him than that. Steve says, let Dewsbury Hall replace Enzo. Again, you're risking Caicedo, so you've got to be careful there. Do you think Ugochukwu should have been recalled as well, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. You should have done that on the first of the month, because if you'd done that on the 1st of January, he'd have started under what's his name? It's not Jovic. Whatever his name is, I can't remember their manager now. Juric, that's the one. If you'd have recalled him on the 1st, he'd have started one game under Juric. You could have still given the excuse, although it's not really an excuse, but the excuse of, oh, he wasn't starting enough for us. You've now let him play like 4 or 5 games, maybe 6 games in a row where he started every single one. So now it didn't make sense for us to recall him because he was actually starting.
Well, from a player development side, I can appreciate it, but also you can still develop for Chelsea and get minutes at Chelsea.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like
relegation battle or pushing for the Champions League.
That's what I mean. If we'd have recalled him when we should have done at the start of the window, then he probably would have played more minutes for us than he would have at Southampton at that point. But he's now since started all those games to the point where, no, he probably isn't going to get more minutes for Chelsea than he would at Southampton because he's starting every game. But it's just, it's just the window we just had. I would be here for a very long time if I was to give all my thoughts on that window we just had.
Yeah. Now, number 10 is a very interesting problem to have because you could have said maybe João Felix. You could have said Chukwuemeka. We could have played Cassidy in this game if we really wanted to bench someone. Who do you play? Who plays in that 10?
Armour again. Ole.
I mean, is there even anyone to compete with? I don't even
know. Funnily enough, because as we'll get onto in a moment, the guy who could compete with him is now playing up front because we have no one else.
So we have to play Nkunku as well because we have no other strikers available.
The reason why you have to, he was injured for weeks, months, we don't know. I'm not risking Jackson because he's our number one, technically, and like with everything else, like he just is our number one. If he gets injured because you've played him because he's a risk and he's out for months, there's no one else. It's then Nkunku probably the rest of the season. That's top 4 finish, by the way. If Jackson goes down, I don't care how you feel about him and the fact he hasn't been informed. If he goes down, that's top 4 finished. That's top 4 done for me. There's no one else. Like I told you, if Fofana's injured, Moika we can't even play. He's 17 and he's injured.
I think that even without Jackson, we could get top 4. I think Caicedo is the one that we can't risk. So that's the debate for me is Caicedo or Dewsbury Hall, and that's about. I mean, we're not going to see Amugu play. It's not going to happen. Maresca's basically categorically said he's not going to play. He said he's not going to. He said we didn't sign him thinking he's going to play an important part for us immediately. I mean, if he's not important, then he's not going to feature, is he? I mean, unless. I don't know. He's contradicting himself if Amugu plays this game, Maresca. And we've already seen Stephen what he said. He said Maresca's statements in the press exposing himself as a yes man. There's one way of describing it. I mean, the thing is, he came into the job knowing exactly what he was getting himself into, and now he's here and he's doing exactly what he was supposed to do. So, do you call that a yes man? I don't know. Maybe you could say that. He's a coach. He's not a manager. He's a coach, and a coach just has to work with what he has. Your opinion doesn't matter. whatever you want in terms of transfers is irrelevant. And if you don't like it, you're gone. Doesn't matter how long you've been told you're going to stay here, whether it's a 5-year deal with Posse or Poch coming in. Yeah. I think Maresca is going to be here even if we miss out on top 4, to be totally honest with you, Scott. Just based on the fact that he's basically bending the knee to the club. And I mean, you don't really have many other options, do you?
Really.
You either do that or you lose your job. And I think from Maresca's standpoint, to come from Leicester to Chelsea, I mean, you obviously want to compete at the highest level.
Yeah, and I think it's I don't like the yes man thing, but I do think some of the things he is saying are as a result of the mindset in the club, if that makes sense. Like the comments he made about the targets of the season, that he's the 3rd manager that's made comments like that. That's a pattern. That's not normal to me. That I think that's coming from above. But yeah, I think with Maresca's comments in the media, I've come to just ignore them because they'll just piss me off otherwise. They'll just annoy me. So it's just like, I know he's going to say some stuff that makes no sense and is just either him trying to placate those above him and the fans at the same time, or just trying to give the message that those above him are giving, or whatever. Like, I'm just letting him say it and getting on with it, because otherwise I'll just get annoyed.
It's fair enough. Right, we got the wingers. So what are we doing? We've got left wing first. Who are we playing on the left?
Who
have you got? You've got Tyreek George. You've got
it's either him or
Joe Madueke is probably not a left winger, but yeah.
I know you said left wing. I'd start with the right wing. I want Neto to start on the right. The left, it's either George or Sancho. Do you know what? I think this is a game you could give George minutes and it'd be okay. And just see how he does. Almost like a sink or swim moment in the Premier League. Because he hasn't really had many that I can remember against Premier League teams. So see how he does against a proper Premier League team. Like, he'll be playing against, I think, one of Lamptey maybe, or Veltman or someone like that. See how he handles them.
I have to disagree with Neto. I wouldn't play Neto for the same reason that I wouldn't play Caicedo. You are forced into playing Palmer. You are forced. I know that I know that you're saying Enzo can play as a 10-2. He's not very good as a 10. We've seen him play there many times last season. He's not a great 10. You get the best out of Enzo as a 6. Or if you really wanted to push it, you could try and get him as an 8, which Maresca has done, and it has worked at times, like against Leicester. It can happen, but I don't want to see him that far up the pitch. I don't mind if he's a deeper midfielder making runs into the box. I think that's a totally different thing than always being in and around that area, having to operate in those tight spaces. Palmer's the only one who can do it. So that's my stance on Enzo. I presume you agree, Scott, unless you'd be open to the idea.
The Enzo as a 10 thing could work potentially because of the way we play the 10s, but we don't have anyone else in midfield. Like, if he plays 10, who plays in central midfield? Emugu? Raksaki?
I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Raksaki in this team either, but again, you've got to show that you're taking this competition seriously. By starting Raksaki, Maresca is basically saying, well, look, he's given the youth a chance. There's nothing wrong with that, but you're also saying to Brighton, we're here for the taking. You could argue that he's doing the same thing even with the lineup we've done now, but still relatively strong. I mean, you've picked a strong lineup, in fairness. I think that's a decent back line. You've got the best keeper that we have available at the moment, the strongest midfield, our best player available, and Kunku's still a really top player. Let's not kid ourselves, but it's not his natural position. And you got our best winger as well with Neto. So George, maybe Achimpong. Apart from that, you can't really see too many weaknesses.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it? Like, as much as I'd have a bit of rotation, the only rotation I could come to bring myself to do was George and Achimpong. And even those two, like Achimpong, I said, yeah, I'd start. George, I ummed and ahed, because it's like, Not because I think he's a bad player, but because we've had so many issues in attack recently that like maybe we should just start our best attackers we've got available because there's no one else. And this again, it goes back to the window. We came out of that window worse and weaker than we started because we got rid of players that could in this game. Say we don't have the window we just had, right? Felix, I'm starting in this game 100%. If we'd record him, I'm starting Leslie in this game 100%. That's already 2 more rotational pieces. You can maybe rest Caicedo properly and have an actual replacement that isn't KDH. No disrespect, but it's like not the same type of profile. You can maybe rest Palmer or put him out on the wing so he has less responsibility in the game, potentially. Or you start Felix on the left and you have him drift inside and Kukureya's the kind of overlapping fullback in the game. Like you don't get rid of Vega's a different one, but you get a good replacement for Vega, even if it's on loan. Cool, you can rest Kukureya. But we didn't address any of these issues, and we're now playing a game where we could do a bit of rotation to rest some guys, but we can't because we don't have the pieces. And then we're going to play Brighton in 6 days' time again, probably with the same team minus Achimpong and George, because there's no one else.
I think it's also dependent on what Brighton do, whether they rotate as well. Based on what their managers said, you know, they are taking this competition seriously. You know, that they're in it to win it. That's basically what their managers said. I'm trying to see if I can find the quote. Oh yeah, Fabian Hertzland. Here's what he said. He said, "We will go all in. It is a do or die game. We have proven already this season that we can beat everyone. We will have a very positive mindset of full confidence to go into this game." Now, maybe he's just talking rubbish. I don't know. Maybe he's saying all this and then they're going to play their second choice team. I don't know. But it sounds to me like Brighton are going to go in and not rotate, apart from the players that they don't have available anyway. We know that, you know, a couple of their key players like Balebra, Estupinian, and I think there's Ayari or something like that. Apart from that, I don't know of any injuries from Prime, but it seems like that those are quite big ones, especially Baleba. So if they affect Brighton that much, then maybe you're able to take the risk. But also at the same time, you could be at the stance. Why not just go into this game with a strong lineup? Put yourself in a comfortable position so that after 60 minutes you can take the players off nice and early. Anyway, is that not a viable option? Or is that still too risky?
No, that's 100% an option. But even then, the guy like you'd have to be comfortably ahead like 3-0 because the guys you're bringing on is Amugu, Ratsaki. I don't even no one in the attack. Like Madueke would be fine with those guys. If you don't start George, that would be fine. But like especially in midfield, the guys you're going to be bringing on and potentially in the defense as well, the guys you're going to be bringing on have had basically no experience of playing at this level, and so you'd have to be comfortably ahead, and it'd have to be late in the game where even if Brighton did get a goal, it doesn't matter. So, like, it's just so many problems.
I tell you what, I would change it. This is what I would change. I take Neto out, and to be honest with you, I play Sancho because he hasn't performed particularly well. But I'd like to see him on the right. I do think that he can do a job on the right. I'd keep George. I think that's a good option. I'd probably keep Palmer and Nkunku anyway because you don't have any options apart from those players. And then in the midfield, I take Caicedo out. I put Dewsbury Hall in there. I don't risk Caicedo. I don't risk it. Even if we win the FA Cup just by losing Caicedo and then potentially missing out on Champions League is scarier to me. You think, oh, bloody hell, maybe it must be a good season getting 2 trophies. Conference League, you knew you were going to win. FA Cup means nothing if you don't get Champions League football. Players aren't going to come to you because of that. Also, if we missed out on Champions League football anyway, we'd probably end up in a Europa League spot. So it just becomes irrelevant in terms of what you get for winning the FA Cup. And then the only other change that you could potentially say is in the back line. if you're looking to rest Cucurella, you play Gusto, which I probably wouldn't do. I'd be open to keeping this back line or even changing Achimpong for Gusto. But I would only do that again if we were looking to overlap. So if Gusto is going to be looking to invert, which I don't think would happen with Cucurella on the pitch, yeah, I would quite like to see Gusto causing some problems on that right-hand side. And I think he would link up really well with Sancho because Sancho's a player who likes to get other players involved, and he can pick those passes. But I don't think it will happen, so I keep Achimpong there. So those are the main changes I would make. I'd swap Neto for Sancho. I don't want to risk Neto getting injured. And Dewsbury Hall for Caicedo again. If we lose Caicedo, a lot of Chelsea fans will agree with me. It's over. The season is over. You can't go into any other games thinking that we're going to win any midfield battles when Dewsbury Hall and Fernandes are the only players that you have available. And a Mugu who's 19 years old, who hasn't even played 1,000 minutes of professional football. How many minutes did you say it was, Scott? Was it 900 and something?
It's 857.
857 minutes. I mean, that is ridiculous. Also, when people talk about the business that we're doing, and that deal might turn out to be really smart. I mean, these directors were brought in for that purpose of bringing in talent that basically no one's ever heard of. His market value was about 4.5 million anyway. So we paid triple his market value, and people are talking about good business because we sent Disasi on loan for 5 million, but then declined a £6 million offer beforehand. So we had to take a worse deal for Disasi because he refused to go to Tottenham. I don't blame him in that sense. I mean, you could argue that Vega was a good business deal because of the financial aspect, but from a footballing standpoint, it's the most stupid decision ever. This is a game I'd probably pick Vega for, as well with our centre-back issue, Scott. Do you not think that Vega should be in contention for our centre-back slot as well, especially because he's a left-sided player? I think a lot of the times for some of these managers, Guardiola's one that really likes having left-sided players on the left and right-sided players on the right. I think that's a really important thing to have in a team for especially balance. We never see Vega play as a centre-back, and now he's gone to Juventus. He seems to be doing all right down there.
Yeah, he's playing quite a bit, I think, but I just don't think he was seen as a centre-back here, which is why when he comes back, I think he'll be sold, because I don't think he'll be seen as a centre-back, because unless Colwell or Badiashile are sold, there isn't space there for him.
Well, I think they will be sold. I think that not Colwell, sorry. I think that Chalobah will be sold. So that opens up a slot straight away. Fofana's always injured, so he's irrelevant. And then, if you're looking at competition, we're going to be rotating, hopefully, with Champions League football. You won't be able to play the same players every week. There's got to be a space for
him. Potentially. I do need to go now, though.
No worries. No, I appreciate you hanging around, Scott. And mate, really good to have you back on the channel. Let's jump on a call later if you're around. And listen, big up to you, Scott. Guys, if you enjoyed having Scott on, smash the like buttons. We've got about 60 odd of you in here at the moment. Let's get up to 55 likes on the video. 55 likes, 60 if you really love Scott. But listen, mate, I'll see you soon. And thanks for coming on.
No problem. Enjoy it again.
Big up to you, man. Well, listen, guys, I'm going to go for another 7 minutes before we wrap up. We tend to go for about an hour on these shows. So if you've got any questions, let me know what they are, and I will answer them before I go. And then, to be honest, I'm straight on the train to Brighton. So I've got to check into my hotel and go from there. Let's see what you guys have to say. Neil says Tosin is an average player, but Fulham fans are saying he has one mistake per game. I mean, listen, you're not wrong. He's not the best player in the world, but do I look at Tosin as better business than a player like Fofana? Absolutely, I do. He's low risk, and if it works, then it's fantastic. And you might not look at him and say he's the best player that we have, but he's certainly a positive addition to the team. And replacing Silva was never going to be easy, especially when you lose a player like that on a free. And Tosin, one of the better deals from my perspective that we had in the window, based on the money that we paid for him and what he brings to the team as well. We know that he's a massive presence in the dressing room. He's one of the older players in the squad as well. I think he's a good player to have around, if I'm honest. And I would like to see Tosin stay. And I think also we have to never underappreciate a player who is okay with not playing week in, week out and still bring something to the table off the pitch. There's not many players that you will get like that. Leaders off the pitch, but not necessarily playing week in, week out. Remember Loftus-Cheek, not necessarily a leader, but a great player to have in the squad. Always available, always willing to come in. He had his injury problems, obviously, but never complained, and he left the best way possible, the ultimate professional, and that's what I want to see. And it seems like Tosin's not too dissimilar in that sense. You agree, Histon? He might be average, but Colwell's made so many mistakes in the past 2 seasons, and he's always arguing with the refs. Just keep playing. I do think that it's the right decision to have Colwell out for a couple of games, so that makes perfect sense. Neil, big up to you. Appreciate the kind message. I'm glad that you enjoy it. David said, I think the briefs came out with Leslie that they didn't want to recall him because he's starting now. The question is, though, is that the right decision or is it the wrong decision? Because now you look at the lineup that we're forced to play with. If we're not playing Dewsbury Hall, which I've put, because I've changed Scott's lineup ever so slightly, I've put Sancho instead of Neto and Dewsbury Hall instead of Caicedo. If we are playing our better players and we risk injury, Ugochukwu would have been a great option to have, not just as a rotation for this game, but if one of those players did get injured, he could fill in. Now, nobody's saying that Ugochukwu is going to solve all of our problems, but he's going to give us a lot more confidence than having nobody, or having Amugu, who's not even played 900 minutes, let alone 1,000 minutes of professional football. So it is scary, Neil, that we don't have a cover for Cucurella. We did have cover. We did have cover for Caicedo. Well, we have cover for Jackson, but Guyu's injured. So you're forced to play Nkunku. Alex, you're right. We don't need Jackson for top 4. We need Caicedo. I think that we can get away without having Jackson in the side. I do think that we can get away with it, especially bearing in mind his dip recently. I still think he's a massive asset to the team. I like him. I don't want to see him. I think that he deserves more praise than what he gets, but not to shy away from the fact that he's been very underwhelming recently. This is Brighton. They are not playing with cups as it's their best chance. Yeah, well, Hertz has come out and he said we're in it to win it. So I think we need to take this competition just as seriously as they do. Stephen says, will Parnham burn out? We're overplaying him. To be honest with you, it's irrelevant. Whether he gets burnt out or not, he is still going to play. You could have said the same thing last season. Last season, though, he dragged us through every single week. Who's to say that he can't do it again? But at the same time, how long can you go without being burnt out? And I do think that we're probably not far away from that point, but we don't have any more options. We have no one that can play as a 10. And Nkunku's there, but we don't have a striker. So we're forced to play Nkunku further up, which means you have to play Palmer as a 10, unless you play Enzo Fernandez out of position, which I think is a real letdown. If that does happen, you can't see Fernandez playing too high up the pitch. It doesn't make sense to me. Enzo needs management. He drifts too far right forward and breaks formation. That is not our formation. They often land a 3-4-3. Listen, we saw Fernandez play further on the right in a number of games. I think against Leicester it worked really well. I wouldn't have a problem seeing it again. But you need to have players you can link up with. If you've got Nkunku a little bit more static than Jackson, then it might be harder for him to pick out those passes. But one of the nice things about having Fernandez drifting a little bit further to the right is he can whip in some crosses. And unlike Jackson, Nkunku is a player who can get on the end of those crosses and is better in the box, if we're totally honest, in those tight areas. Are we underestimating Brighton? Based on the lineup that I've picked, I would say no. I'd say we're taking them very seriously, but Maresca could be totally different. Scott reports say Felix, he wanted to leave to play. Well, that is the reason. He wanted game time, and the club accepted that. So that's not wrong. You don't think Chelsea care about the FA Cup? Well, if you look at the Carabao Cup, that's a fair point. Chelsea must balance the books. 300k per week, he hardly plays. I think he is a player that you'll see leaving in the summer. Big up to you, Neil. Stephen, passing the positive vibes on to Scott. Big up to Scott. He will be coming on the channel a lot more, guys. He had some stuff going on, but now he's back, so it'll be good to see him back in the fold. There is no updates on Vivid Seats. No updates. Bowley has not come out and responded to the Chelsea Supporters Trust. As far as I'm aware, there's no updates on that. My opinion on Colwell, I think he's a great centre back. Definitely one of my favourites, if not my favourite, after Chalobah. I love Chalobah. I think Chalobah's great. Chalobah's my number one. But Colwell for me would be my number two, but that doesn't change the fact that he needs to be dropped. I think that he'll be absolutely fine. Just honestly, young players, you're going to have this. You're going to have dips. He's had a dip. He needs some time out. He needs to reflect. He needs some competition as well. Nothing wrong with having a bit of time out to reset and work on yourself a little bit. I've heard Tosin is well respected by the young guns. I think that's one of the reasons we brought him in, because he is an older player that can lead the dressing room, or at least be one of the main characters, showing these younger players a good example. Aaron says, I think we should be more patient with the club directors and owners. I see a progression. We are looking better than the past 2 seasons. More to come. That's absolutely true, Aaron. However, there are bigger aspects at play than just football. We're looking at the financial aspect as well, which is a little bit worrying if you look at the Vivid Seat situation, as well as the fact that we're selling all of the club's assets. The owners are selling them to themselves. Why are we doing it? What is the motivation behind it? And the question is, are they good owners for Chelsea based on what they have been doing so far? I leave that question to you. I certainly have mixed feelings about it. Listen, guys, I'm going to have to wrap it up, but I appreciate you all jumping on. We've got 66 people in here. Can we get to 60 likes on the video? Let me know. Don't know why I put 69 likes on that. That was a typo. There you go. 69 likes then. All right, screw it. Can we get to 69 likes? Let me know what we're on, guys. Smash the like button if you haven't already. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We are going to be doing much more lives. 1 o'clock and 8 o'clock pretty much every day, unless it's a match day or the day after. We will always try and get some content out there for you. Big up to you, Neil, as well. Proper Chelsea, Raniel, go Chelsea. Absolutely, guys. Appreciate your time. I will be at the game, so check out the vlog and the fan cams after if you want to. Otherwise, we will be in the studio tomorrow morning. The video will be out in the afternoon, and there will be a stream on Sunday evening as well, where you can tune in if you want to jump back on. All the best, guys, and we will catch up very soon.